I never believed in ghosts. At least, not until I moved into the house on Black Hollow Road. It was an old, forgotten house in the countryside, surrounded by dead trees and an eerie silence that never felt natural. I had gotten it for an unbelievably cheap price, and the real estate agent had been oddly eager to close the deal. That should have been my first warning. The first night was uneventful, aside from the feeling that the house was watching me. The air was thick, and every floorboard creaked under my feet, as if the house was sighing. By the second night, I started hearing things. Faint whispers, like hushed voices in another room. At first, I convinced myself it was the wind, but when I walked past the old mirror in the hallway, I saw something behind me, just a flicker, a shadow too dark to be my own. I spun around. Nothing. Then the whispers grew louder. They became voices. Not just one, but several. They spoke in hurried tones, but I couldn't understand the words. At night, I felt something pulling at my blankets, tugging at my shirt as I slept. One night, I woke up to the sound of knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on my bedroom door. I held my breath. Another 3 knocks. I got up, trembling, and reached for the door handle. The moment I touched it, a coldness shot up my arm, like ice burning my skin. I yanked my hand away, and then silence. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I decided to dig into the history of the house. What I found made my blood run cold. In the late 1800s, a family had lived there. A husband, a wife, and their daughter. The father had gone mad and locked them inside, starving them to death before taking his own life. Neighbors claimed they could still hear the screams at night. That night, I decided I had to leave. But as I packed, the air in the house grew heavy. It felt like something was pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. The whispers turned into screams. My lights flickered violently, and then in the mirror I saw them. The mother, gaunt and hollow-eyed. The little girl, clutching her stomach, tears running down her pale cheeks. And behind them, the father, his face twisted into a sick grin, his empty eyes locking onto mine. I ran. I don't even remember grabbing my keys. I don't remember locking the door. I just remember the cold night air as I fled, never looking back. I sold the house immediately, not caring about the loss. Someone else owns it now. But sometimes in the dead of night, I wonder, did they ever hear the knocks? I moved to a small apartment in the city, far from Black Hollow Road, far from the shadows that had haunted me. For months, I told myself it was over, but the nightmares began almost immediately. At first, they were just flashes, images of the mother's sunken eyes, the child's trembling hands, the father's twisted grin. Then came the sounds. The whispers returned, seeping into my dreams, crawling under my skin. And then the knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Always in my dreams. Always from the other side of a door I was too afraid to open. One night, I woke up gasping for air, my chest burning. My room was freezing, my breath visible in the air. And then I heard it. 3 knocks. But it wasn't from the dream this time. It was real. I froze. My heart pounded in my ears. The knocks came again, louder this time, shaking my bedroom door. I reached for my phone, my hands shaking. 3 a.m. Slowly, I forced myself out of bed. My body felt heavy, as if something was trying to hold me down. The air was thick, suffocating. I grabbed the door handle. Ice cold. I turned it. The door swung open, revealing nothing but darkness. My small apartment had never felt so vast, so endless. The air smelled of rotting wood, and something else, something foul. And then I saw them. The mother, standing in the corner of my living room, her face contorted in silent agony. The child, crouched near the couch, staring at me with hollow, empty eyes. And the father, he was closer this time. So close I could see the way his lips curled, forming that sick, knowing grin. My body locked in place. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Then he took a step forward and whispered, "You let us in." The room went black. When I woke up, the sun was rising, casting long shadows across my apartment floor. Everything looked normal. No signs of them, no cold spots, no rotten smell. But when I turned toward my bedroom door, my stomach twisted. 3 long, deep scratches ran down the wood. I never heard the knocks again. But I know they're still with me. Watching. Waiting. Because sometimes, when I look in the mirror, I see him smiling back. I stopped sleeping. I stopped looking in mirrors. But no matter what I did, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were always just out of sight. The air in my apartment never felt quite right. Too thick, too cold, too still. Then one night, something changed. I was sitting on my couch, trying to distract myself with the glow of the television when the screen flickered. Static. My heart skipped a beat. Then the whispers started. Not from the TV. From behind me. I turned slowly, every muscle in my body screaming for me to run. The mother stood in the hallway, her bony fingers twitching at her sides. The little girl crouched beside her, rocking back and forth, her lips moving in silent, frantic prayer. And the father, he was standing right behind me. I felt his breath against my neck before I saw his reflection in the dark window in front of me. He was grinning, but this time his lips moved. Time's up. The lights exploded. A force slammed into me, knocking me off the couch. The whispers turned into full screams, echoing through my apartment, rattling the walls. I scrambled backward, my hands slipping on the cold wooden floor. And then I saw it. The mirror in the hallway. The reflection was wrong. In it, the apartment was warped, rotted, decayed. The walls were cracked, the floor covered in something dark and wet. And in the mirror's version of my apartment, I was standing, but my reflection wasn't looking at me. It was looking at him, the father. He was standing inside the reflection, just behind my mirrored self. But the worst part? My reflection was smiling. It lifted its hand, palm out. The father placed his hand against it, pressing against the glass. The mirror began to ripple like water. And then I understood. He wasn't haunting me. He was waiting. Waiting for me to step forward. Waiting for me to trade places. The screams grew unbearable, drilling into my skull, pushing me forward. My body moved on its own, my feet dragging toward the mirror. My reflection's eyes locked onto mine, hungry, eager. I had seconds, maybe less. With every ounce of strength I had left, I turned and ran. I didn't stop. Not when I reached the door. Not when I burst into the hallway, barefoot and shaking. Not even when I reached the street, gasping for breath, my body screaming in pain. I never went back. The apartment burned down 3 days later. No one could explain how the fire started. The news said there were no signs of arson, no electrical issues. But they found something in the ashes. The frame of a mirror. And on the scorched glass, a perfect handprint. Not from the outside, from within. I left the city after that, moved across the country, changed my number, erased every trace of my old life. I told myself it was over, that they were gone. But deep down, I know the truth. They never needed the house. They never needed the apartment. They needed me. And sometimes in the dead of night, when the world is silent and the air feels just a little too cold, I hear it again. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. And I know no matter how far I run, no matter where I hide, they'll always find me. I used to live in a small apartment in an old building downtown. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The rent was cheap, the neighbors kept to themselves, and aside from the occasional creaking pipes, the place was quiet. At least, that's what I thought. The first time I noticed him was around 2 a.m. I had fallen asleep on the couch, the TV casting flickering shadows across the room. I woke up suddenly, feeling cold, my skin prickling with unease. And then I saw him. A figure, standing in the far corner of my living room. He was tall, unnaturally so, his body thin, almost skeletal. His head was tilted slightly, as if he were studying me. I couldn't make out his face, but I knew he was looking at me. I blinked, and he was gone. I told myself I had imagined it. Maybe I was still half asleep. Maybe it was a trick of the light. But the feeling remained, that deep, gut-wrenching certainty that I was not alone. Over the next few weeks, the sightings continued. Always at night. Always in the corner of my vision. A shadow in the hallway. A figure reflected in the dark screen of my television. One night, I woke up to the sound of something breathing just inches from my face. My body was frozen in place, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't dare move, didn't dare open my eyes. Then ever so slowly, the mattress shifted, as if something was sitting at the edge of my bed. I couldn't take it anymore. The next day, I called a locksmith and had my locks changed. I convinced myself that maybe it was just paranoia, that maybe I had been seeing things. And for a while it worked, until the night I heard the whisper. I was in the bathroom, brushing my teeth, when I saw movement in the mirror. Just a flicker, a dark shape standing behind me. I spun around, but there was nothing there. I let out a shaky breath, trying to laugh it off. Then, right next to my ear, a voice whispered, "You let me in." I ran. I don't even remember grabbing my keys. I don't remember locking the door behind me. I just remember bursting into the hallway, gasping for air, my skin crawling with the feeling of unseen eyes watching me. I never went back. I left everything behind, my clothes, my furniture, even my phone. I didn't care. Someone else lives in that apartment now. But sometimes in the dead of night, when I close my eyes, I see him, standing in the corner, waiting. I moved into a new apartment on the other side of town, far away from that place. I never spoke about what happened. I never even went back for my things. But it didn't matter, because he followed me. It started small. Shadows that stretched too far. A strange feeling of being watched. At night, I would wake up freezing, my breath visible in the air. Then one night I saw him again. I had been avoiding mirrors, but as I walked past the dark screen of my television, I saw the reflection. He was standing in the corner of my new living room. Closer this time, his head still tilted. Watching, I turned, my heart pounding. But there was nothing there. I wanted to believe it was stress, paranoia. But deep down, I knew the truth. He was never in the old apartment. He was never tied to that place. He was tied to me. The whisper came again that night, right as I was drifting off to sleep. "You let me in." I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. But I wasn't alone. The air in the room was thick, suffocating. And in the corner, just barely visible in the darkness, he stood closer than ever. Then, for the first time, he moved. Slowly, deliberately, he took a step forward. Then another. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. And then he was at the edge of my bed. I squeezed my eyes shut. A hand brushed against my arm. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, the room was empty. The air was still, but my skin burned where he had touched me. I left that morning, packed a bag and drove, not knowing where I was going. Just away. I don't stay in one place for long now. I never sleep in the same bed twice. I keep the lights on at night. But it doesn't matter. Because every time I wake up, no matter where I am, no matter how far I run, he's always there, standing in the corner, waiting.